Last but not least, let's have a look at how we can edit files. This is important as during the practical parts you usually will have to edit some configuration files, for example for a web server or other services like DNS. Until now we looked at how we can create files and move them around using, for example, the touch and move commands. But we did not edit them. In order to edit files we have two possibilities. You can use a graphical or a terminal-based editor. Let's have a look at the graphical editor first. We pre-installed a lightweight editor called Mousepad for you. In the VLab, so not one of the core hosts, you can open Mousepad from a terminal, like I have one already open here, by just typing Mousepad and pressing enter. Let's try that. Alternatively, you can specify a file name with Mousepad followed by the file name. Then the according file is directly opened. You can also just open the file using File and then Open and then select the file that you want to open. However, since core hosts do not have a graphical user interface on their own, they only interact via terminals, you will receive an error when trying the same on a terminal on a core host. Let's try this. Here we have the setup of part 1 already started. We can open a terminal on a host by double-clicking on it. Now if I enter Mousepad, I'll get an exception. While you cannot directly start Mousepad on a core host, we provide you with a special command that still allows you to do so. Corepad. What it does is that it basically just starts Mousepad with some minor twists in the startup process, which allows us to run Mousepad on a core host. Let's try it. You can ignore the warning at the top here. As we usually run as root users on core hosts, as seen here, Corepad is also started with root privileges. So as long as you just follow the instructions, there is nothing you could do wrong. And even if, you could just reset the VLab. Now you can use the editor to open, edit or save any files on your core host where you opened the Corepad instance. So here on Hive A. Brief outlook to part 5 of the course. Firefox and also other graphical applications have similar issues. Therefore, we also added a CoreFox command which opens Firefox on any core host. Let's try it. So here we started Firefox on Hive A, as you can see here, and we also don't have an internet connection, so you might get another tab which automatically opens with a warning that you cannot open the mozilla.org page. We will need CoreFox in parts 5 and 6. An alternative to a graphical user interface based editor like Mousepad is to use a command line editor like Nano, which would also be more realistic when, for example, administering a real world network and connecting to remote hosts over the network using, for example, SSH. In contrast to graphical applications, you can install and use any terminal-based editor you like, for example, Emacs or Vim. Just install it before starting a setup in Core. We just use Nano as example throughout the course, as it is rather simple to use and learn. Nano works rather simple. We can just type Nano followed by the name of the file that we want to edit. For example, file1.txt. And then press enter. Now we are already in a text editor mode in Nano. Here we can simply write our text, for example, hello world, enter for new line, I love the iLab X, and we can use the arrow keys to move the cursor around if we want to edit something in between, for example. If we want to save the file, we can see the instructions on how to do so at the bottom. You won't need most of those. But if you're interested, you can have a look at some Nano tutorials if you're not familiar with it. Most of the time you will need write out here to save the file and exit to close the editor. The required commands are, as mentioned, listed here. You have to press the Control key followed by the letter of the according command. So for write out, we press Control and O. And then you can see here we get the file name and file name to write, and we can just press Enter to confirm, and we see that we wrote 2 lines. We can now press Ctrl plus X, as seen at the bottom left, to exit the editor. If we use ls to check the files in our current directory, we can see that we created the file1.txt. We can also check its content using, for example, cut. It is just what we wrote in earlier. Another nice feature that we can see here is a history of the terminal. We can use the arrow keys up and down to go through the last commands that we typed in. Arrow up goes through the latest history of our terminal commands, and arrow down goes back again. We can also use, for example, corepad to edit the file that we just created. Let's add some text, save it, and close corepad. Just select save here or press Ctrl S for save and close it. If we open the file again with Nano, we can see that text has actually changed. So to sum it up, we provide you with 2 ways how you can edit files. A graphical editor, Mousepad, which you can start from core hosts using the corepad command, and a terminal-based editor, Nano. You can use whichever you like more. You can complete the course with any of those 2 tools.